Welcome everybody, particularly those in the public forum that wish to come and speak to us. It's always appreciated. So, Greg, nice to see you too. So, we can start. Get that here. Joe, I'll have you do that. That'd be lovely. Thank you.
E tū. E nā toho o mātou atua o te rangi o te whenua. Hei aratakina i a mātou I ngā taki e whiriwhiri ai I tēnei wā. I raro anō I te aroaro e ranganui ki ranga. A Papua Tuanuku e takoto nei. Whakamaua kia tina. Haumei e hui e taia ki e. And I'm going to say it in English too, with a couple of slight changes. We call upon all of the indications of our Lord and of the celestial and earthly elements that surround us to lead and guide us in the deliberations before us at this time. We do this conscious of the attentive presence of the Lord above us and the earth below us. To this we hold fast, united and bound together as one.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Sharon.
First item on the agenda is apology. An apology here from Councillor Christie and also an apology from Cherie. So those cannot attend will be online. Am I very receptive for those topics?
Yep.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Peter. Public forum, allow 5 minutes per speaker. So, welcome, as I said before, and Cheryl and Emma, would you like to come forward?
Thank you. I'll go first, because I'm on it.
Wise. Wise is the word.
Wiser. Good morning. Can I be registered to speak or not?
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just waiting for the concept of government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can present a petition to you, which I believe you will receive. And it's presented to inform you of the public displeasure about the closure of Mary Street to vehicle traffic. 641 signatures were collected over 21 days. At first, signatures were collected by 2 senior citizens. Well, one really, because I was in isolation with COVID. Soon after, we were assisted by concerned businesses in the township and friends. Petition shows that people of Thames believe the closure of Mary Street to vehicles has greatly diminished the benefit of the roundabout at the intersection of Mary Street and Queen Street, Highway 25. Traffic from the eastern side of the township wishing to access Highway 25 and Goldfield Mall and vice versa are now having to detour around the most direct route. Access on Highway 25 from adjacent streets to Mary Street has become extremely difficult, particularly in peak times. Peak times of Thames, as you all know, are not only connected to business hours, but also be to tide times, to holiday periods, and even lunch times. Vehicles towing fishing boats to catch the tide, camper vans, large trucks getting supplies to and from the top of the peninsula, all make this access across town extremely difficult. There is a lack of clarity that it has created the vibe that the project intended. Does council have any evidence that the closure has benefited the town beyond an award for looking pretty? We thank everyone who signed our petition and hope that due consideration is given to it by you, our elected representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to speak to?
My reason for reopening Mary Street is purely for safety. The roundabout is the safest way for traffic to cross Queen Street. I actually think there should be a roundabout at Richmond Street as well, due to the high number of residents at Richmond Villas, and also perhaps Burke Street, an awkward intersection which is high traffic flow. Roundabouts have proven to be the safest option at busy intersections, i.e. the Kopu-Hikawai border, which has seen quite a few bad accidents in the past, now much safer. Plus the Paero to Aroha intersection, the traffic flows well and safely. The petition was very well received by people once they heard about it and couldn't understand why the road has been proposed at one end in the first place to be replaced by a seating area. Once they knew of the petition, people were asking where they could sign. Every retailer we approached was more than happy to have it in their business premises and in fact passed copies of it to other businesses. In a short time, we collected 641 signatures and I'm sure we could have had many more with the extra time. We're extremely grateful for their support and that of the public. I have still not become used to the blockading of Mary Street and invariably go to turn left and I can't. Which is more important, safe travel or a pretty street reward? Thank you for listening and hoping for change.
Is there any points of clarification? Because you've both come up again, and there may be some points of clarification that
Sure.
the board would like to ask you. Yep.
Could you just repeat that bit where you were talking to the businesses, what the comment, there was a point there. Could you just repeat that for me, please?
We just asked.
Every retailer we approached was more than happy to have it in their business premises and in fact passed copies to other businesses. In a short time, we collected 641
Right,
signatures.
okay, thank you.
Yes, we just, because Heather was the lead and I was in isolation, she went, I think, to 3 businesses initially, the first day. And when I collected them, when I was free again, I went to 8 businesses. And yes, word had got round, and even when we were collating it, we still had people wanting to sign it, but we had a deadline to get it in here to you. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Just one question, like, with your discussion with the businesses and everything else, or you know, with your own views, if one side of the street were to be open to traffic, in other words, from the roundabout through into Poland Street, and the trial continue on that basis to give fairness relating to it being a full closure versus a part closure, would you be in support of that, or is it just
From Collins Street through to Queen Street?
no, the other way around?
The other way
Queen
around.
Street- Queen Street into Poland Street.
As when you were first asking, whenever that was, when the tin shed was put up there, the container was put up there, and there was a very limited period for people to go and vote for closure of it or opening one way, coming up Mary Street, turning left into Pollen. That was only the 2 options. There was no option to remain open, the street to remain open. I was one of the very few, I think there were only a couple of hundred people actually voted because so many people didn't know that they could. And I voted to leave it to open, but I didn't really feel that it was going to be of much help because you could only go left. You couldn't go up, you know, well, you could go, I guess, straight up to the hospital, but then the people that I had spoken to, mainly friends, colleagues, people from the Croaky Club, wherever I go, they live up this way
Okay,
and they find it a real problem.
so you're not really in a position to comment.
I think it should be open both ways. It's such a main access road.
Absolutely.
To the roundabout, it should be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Greg, welcome. Nice to see you. Teresa,
Thank you, Jack. You too.
See if that's okay. Yes. Good morning, Chair, elected members and staff. I'm Greg Hampton. I'm the co-owner of Carson's Bookshop on the corner of Mary Street, directly opposite. I consider myself as a business owner in that proximity to provide consider myself an effective pay, the Resource Management Act or the local government act, whichever you choose. Provide is a well-intentioned initiative but unfortunately it has been misguided and it's been through a deeply flawed process. The shame is that it could have been a raging success if it were placed in a more suitable location. But again, unfortunately, no other options were explored or presented to the community board for your consideration or decision making. The whole episode of the vibe reminds me of Hans Christian Andersen's 300-year-old, almost 300-year-old folk tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. Let me explain. Folk tales are useful in that they are often cautionary tales with the purpose to communicate wisdom and teach valuable lessons through analogy. In The Emperor's New Clothes, two swindlers arrive at the capital city of an emperor who spends lavishly on clothing and at the expense of state matters, or in this case, the ratepayer and the taxpayer in reference to the NZTA funding. Posing as weavers, the swindlers offer to supply the emperor with magnificent clothes that are invisible to those who are stupid or incompetent. The emperor hires the swindlers and they set up looms and go to work. A succession of officials and then the emperor himself visit them to check their progress. Each sees that the weaving looms are empty, much like a lie, but pretends otherwise to avoid being thought a fool. Finally, the weavers report that the emperor's suit is finished. They mind dressing him, and he sets off in a procession before the whole city. The townsfolk uncomfortably go along with the pretense, not wanting to appear inept or stupid, until a child cries out, "The emperor has no clothes." So today, with the submission by Heather and Cheryl, 641 of our townfolk are calling it out. The emperor has no clothes. 641 of our townfolk are calling out, there is no vibe at the vibe. Please give us back our road. The reality is that the vibe sits empty on a daily basis and obstructs what was the most popular route for our townsfolk to safely access the State Highway and Goldfields Mall. The vibe road closure also obstructs visitors to town from accessing our town centre from our only State Highway roundabout. The vibe disconnects our two main shopping precincts, Goldfields, Packensae and the town centre. When putting this disconnection to the vibe designer, I was told that council would place stickers on the pavement that would lead shoppers from Goldfields Mall to the vibe and town centre. Another fictional tale. 11 valuable car parks have been removed from our retail town centre by the development of the vibe. Design 101, function before fall. The vibe has made our town centre disconnected and dysfunctional from a traffic movement perspective. The aesthetic of the vibe has often been described as tacky and is probably more at home in a kindergarten playground than in the middle of a main feeder road in our town centre. From the inception of the vibe concept, a fictional story has been constantly being woven by council communications that the vibe is the hub of the community and will somehow magically generate activity. It has done the opposite. Of the two closest businesses to the vibe, one has closed its doors at the vibe through lack of business and moved away to another location in Collins Street. The other business is advertised for sale and sadly for the owner remains for sale. The container has constantly been offered for hire to the community with virtually no takers. Council's own application to keep New Zealand Brewery for competition claimed that the Create Provide hub wasn't just the project of our council, it took a whole community. Without the support of local artists, retailers, engineers, schools and general members of the public, the street and intersection would still be dangerous busy area. Much of this is also fiction. Retailers actually like business and they like car parks as well because our customers tell us all the time how difficult it is to get about. Further, the Innovative Streets program recommends that these initiatives are best implemented on low-use roads. That's NZTA advice. These projects are best implemented on low-use roads. Contradictory to that advice, the Vibe has been placed on the busiest feeder road in our CBD. Many other options existed for the Vibe, but the Community Board were not provided with any other options. And finally, in a totally contradictory move, Council closed the information centre at the Civic Centre in Mary Street and removed a valuable visitor connection and activity to the Vibe and Town Centre. We have now gone through our peak visitor season without an information centre. Currently, these three pamphlets is all that you'll find at Goldfields Mall to provide visitors with information about Thames. These three pamphlets, there are other generic pamphlets, but they are about the whole corridor. So we've gone through our peak visitor season without an information centre. Currently, these pamphlets represents Council's $54,000 spend with Goldfields Mall to provide the Thames Information Centre. And that's $54,000 per year, and I'm not sure how many years that has been signed up for in that contract. So we have we have this much Thames-specific information in the Information Centre. There is no website for the Information Centre, no telephone number, no email address, and no person in place that can offer visitors a service to provide information about our town. We gladly do that at Carson's Bookshop, but when I'm asked where is the Information Centre, I embarrassingly say that we have one, but you'll find very little information or service there. Effectively, currently, there is currently no information centre in Thames, yet you are paying for one. Really just remind us. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up because I'm at the point of moving forward, as we must always move forward. The Vibe is a well-intentioned but misguided initiative that needs to conclude. Multiple councils around the country have sensibly responded to community and removed their innovative street programs within 6 months of their installation. Sometimes it is best to fail early and move on. I understand that the Community Board has engaged the services of a landscape architect to evaluate the success or otherwise of the Vibe. That evaluation was meant to be provided to the Community Board in March. We are now past 1 year anniversary of the closure of Mary Street. That evaluation needs to explore the full range of options for Mary Street, including the option to only close Mary Street for events, which no one will object to because events create activity. Streetscape alone does not create activity. The murals and many other asset investments are located, the murals will not have to move at all. They're beautiful and they make the scene vibrant. Many of the other assets created by the Vibe, and there's not many that are actually sitting on the road. So some of the investment will not be wasted. With good design, the Vibe can be easily transformed to an adaptable streetscape that can close for events but be reopened for everyday use. It's time to adapt in response to our community. To conclude, I return to our cautionary folktale. The child called out, "The emperor has no clothes." But although the emperor is startled, he continues the procession, walking more proudly than ever, even though he has been exposed before his subjects. Let's hope that that's not the case with the Thames Community Board as the emperor of the vibe. The Community Board needs to receive this petition with respect and serious consideration and respond with positive improvements to the current situation. Thank you.
Um,
Thanks, Jeff, for your submissions. Martin?
Yeah, I just wanted to check with reference to your comment that about the building closing. I'm assuming you're referring to Computer Geeks.
Yeah.
So are you aware of why that closed?
Well, when I spoke to him when he was open, and I spoke to him particularly around the effect of the vibe, he said it's taken away all this parking and their business has gone down. So I may have wrongly assumed he moved for that purpose. I don't know.
No.
But certainly it was not working for him. And I spoke to him personally.
Right. Good.
If you've got you say the idea is good. Sorry? In principle, the idea is good. And one of the original things was to open up one side of the street that I mentioned to, yes, you know, and work out live on the other side of the street in the sense of, we know that COVID's, you know, sort of restricted a lot of events and entertainment and all the rest of it, but still your view that in fact it'd be better positioned in a place that's not such a busy material route and one that is less busy, like Conference Street maybe, or something like that, where you could... So I think there are at least 3 other streets, yep, east-west, right, that connect all of the way through the coastal walkway. Yep. They would be ideal streets to connect, to have shared space. Yep. Because recreationally, they will connect the town centre with the coastal walkway. And they are also low-use streets, such as Walter Street, and also our Museum Street, which in the Thames Urban Development Strategy talked about making that shared use. That's far better. That's what and also I would say Parker Street between the GBD and the Junction Hotel and the church would be a really good one, because then you're facing the streetscape, the public space next to hospitality and also next to a green space, which is often used, which is used every day by the public anyway. Then you're extending that part of the church all the way across to the hospitality businesses. That would have been a fantastic place to do this. Yeah, thanks. I know, you know, one of the reasons I mentioned this, Thames mentioned Compton Street, but you mentioned Pioneer Street, Piper. Yeah, I mean, there are different, you know, and I feel that the option that you were presented with, and the final option of completely closing the street was the most extreme thing that could have been done. I can see that with adaptation, Mary Street can still have shared space, traffic calming mechanisms, and still have two-way traffic, such as Elliott Street in Auckland, or many, many examples around the country. And you can have bollards put in within an hour that close it off for events when you have events. Oh, well, no. In relation to the two-way, it's difficult because the community, all of those hills, want to go to the mall and cross the highway at a safe point, which is the roundabout. So yes, it's obvious it should be one way. But talk to the Pollen Street businesses. Given a choice of one way, unfortunately, I would say do it the other way, because we want the traffic off the highway to be able to get to our main street. That's the point. And at the moment, we've got signs, great big orange signs on our highway that says road closed, which is basically a message when they get to the roundabout, either go to the mall and then head off to the peninsula, or just keep going, nothing to see here. great big orange signs, and you still have an information centre sign on the main highway pointing to the civic centre where there is no longer an information centre. Yeah, that was a tragedy. Anyway, thank you very much for your input. It is appreciated. And your experiences in this area. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you've obviously let me go over 5 minutes. Thank you. I was under pressure. Is that all in public forum and the love speak? Yep. Oh, good. Welcome. So, thank you. We're going to open our show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
So we have
And please, I hope you all listen and talk it out.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a resolution regarding the apology. Read it out, or will I read it out? That the Thames Community Board received Cheryl McConnell and Heather Fowle and Greg Hampton as speakers in the public forum, acknowledges the table petition document from Cheryl McConnell and all table correspondence received and read by the board. It's necessary to send the tabling the petition. So I'm mover and second for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They've already been sent to the board. They've already read them.
There's the table. Can they deliver to the table, Ariana? You have a letter?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Does it need to deliver in seconds?
I think it's that is included in your life resilience, right?
Any items not on the agenda? Conflicts of interest? Anyone got any conflicts of interest relating to the agenda item? No conflicts of interest? Confirmation? I'll assume or take those as being read.
Yeah.
Are there any matters arising from those?
Can I just point out a spelling mistake of the member's name, which is critical in my view?
Yeah, that's mine, which is a spelling mistake. Oh.
As it's spelled, Tina.
Somewhere. Can't find it.
Well,
The alleged spelling mistake.
Yes, literally. But nothing from me.
on that line, Mr. Chair, my name is always spelt incorrectly. And if I could have it spelt, Fitzpatrick has actually got a capital P for Patrick, and I have raised it before, but it keeps getting spelt with a small p. So just bring that. Thank you.
Just 2 years after the event.
Yeah.
It's section 6.1. Section 6.1. Read all the 2 hours. But apart from that, I'm happy to move. That's being extended.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. That'd be lovely. I've often had my name spelled as that.
What's that?
So the only item on the agenda today is, because we've got such a huge workshop after it, is the new lease, Thames Junior Football Club, Rhodes Park, page 21 of the agenda. So you can take it as being read. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good morning. Good, thank you.
Good. Would you like to talk to it?
I'll just take the report as read. It's pretty straightforward.
So, yep. Any questions from the board regarding this lease?
My only concern was the 10 years, but I see that there is provision there of if something happens to Rhodes Park within the 10 years, then we have the option to cancel the lease. So that will seem fine to me.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge that it's also in Cole, that you've added that in to signal the intention of the council, which is that, you know, we have that project in the long-term plan, residential partnership, and so that's signalled, so. it's worth
The termination clause, yeah.
No, that's excellent. Thanks, Rose. Is that all right?
Yes, yes, that's great. Yeah, no, any new leases for Rhodes Park, it is signalled that, you know, the future project, future plans.
Bring on the day. Regarding those parks. That's excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Mover and seconder, thank you. Thanks, Peter. Seconder, Barton. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thames Community Board Work Program, 3.1.
Morning.
Welcome, Bruce. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, come in person and see some people, so it's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, happy to take my report as read and answer any questions. Obviously, there are a few challenges around delivery across the district with all the challenges we've got around supply chain disruptions, cost escalations and the like. But overall, things are actually moving quite well, particularly in the Thames Community Board program, but happy to take any questions if you might have.
Bruce, the thing that concerned me was the amount of money that needs to be spent between now and the 30th of June, which, if that is the case, if that money does get spent because people feel they have to spend it, then it can just become sort of a bit of a lolly scramble and not wise and effective spending.
Sure.
So I'm concerned that we might just get, you know, like the rubbish bins.
Yeah.
You know, we get it, oh, you've got to spend the money, and so we get the rubbish bins and it ends up being a cock up.
Yeah, no, that's it. And through the chair, it's a good concern or a good question to ask, because obviously some organisations do end up in that situation with this kind of pressure to spend, you know. But I can assure you that won't happen with us. So we have management pressure on our staff to make sure they're achieving the delivery of the things that we're committed to with our communities, but not to the extent that we just want them to spend anyway. So there will be some of these that I would anticipate we won't be able to get spent this year, and we'll have to come back to council and talk about that at that time and say, look, these were the reasons why we didn't spend it, and if we need to go try and transfer that money across the next financial year to carry on with the project, then they'll come up to council and they'll make the decision whether they approve that or not. So yes, I can assure you we won't have any situations where we've just got people spending just to hit a quantitative.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
So can I just follow through? So it seemed to me that with only 3 months to go in the financial year, that this report could in fact be reflecting the fact that there's no way we're going to spend $115,000 in this particular area over the next 3 months. So actually, at this stage, we're forecasting that we're only going to get halfway through that amount of money. That would be perhaps what would be reasonable to expect, that we're already got a good handle on that rather than just waiting until the 30th of June.
Yeah. So yes, the team's definitely not just kind of holding on, waiting, and then suddenly, big surprise, sorry, we didn't spend. So these are at the end of February. So at that stage, they're still forecasting that they will spend those. Now, I guess what I'm saying is the reality, I think, is that with all the challenges that we've had over the last few months, and particularly in the last month around COVID, and a number of our contractors not being able to actually even get on site because their crews have all gone down with COVID. We had that at Totara Valley. They lost about a week and a half there. where they had guys just got down with COVID. I think the reality is we'll have some underspend, but at the time when they did this, did these forecasts at the end of February,
Right.
they were still confident that things were moving forward. And I think we will get you will see quite a lot of spend happen in just the last couple of months of the financial year.
I think I would feel comfortable if I felt that at the next meeting,
Yeah.
There was some red.
Yes, yeah, well, definitely. I anticipate that there will be some changes by the time we get to the next meeting, like I say, because there has been a lot of change in the last, just in the last month with contractors across the whole district, which, I guess, the health, health department were forecasting that around COVID. So it has really caused a bit of an issue around business continuity for a lot of our contractors. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
If it's not spent, can that be carried over, that money be carried over into the new financial year?
Yes, so through the chair, that's what I was touching on before, the previous question is that what will happen is that the team and myself will look at that and say, look, we didn't get to achieve the full project, so we need to carry that budget across the next financial year.
Yep.
A report will go up to council early in the new financial year that will request carry forwards for a number of projects across the whole district. Some of the areas you might not need to carry the money across. So some of the projects, mostly the big district projects where we have renewals, you have a renewals budget every year. So if you don't achieve it this year, you do have funds to kind of try and prioritise for next year. But for a lot of the community projects like in here, you wouldn't need to carry that forward. So
Yeah, thank you.
And Bruce, the big ticket items there are the, of course, the Tokyo Valley extensions.
Yes.
And that's the one that seems to be behind in relationship to what Peter was referring to.
Yes.
So is that likely to be progressed pretty well by June, those major ones for us?
Yeah, I think things are actually going pretty well as far as the Thames Valley project goes. Things have moved forward considerably around the land issues that we had. So we've worked on those. We have got had some challenges around the services around power and electricity, because those things never kind of go quite as smoothly as what you might like. But overall, they've actually managed to achieve quite a bit. And the other thing that what I'd say is, again, reflect on this is that the end of February. Plus, you do get quite a lag, obviously, with the contractors. By the time they build, they build quite a, it can be quite a period after they've actually done the work.
Yeah.
So you do get a bit of a lag coming through. So we've got the lag on the report and actually them invoicing. So what you see now is probably not an accurate, or it's not an accurate representation of where we are today. And that's just unfortunately the way it goes with the reporting and deadlines.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
You feel about where it's all.
Yeah, but overall things are moving forward. We haven't had any kind of major issues there apart from those challenges on COVID with the contractors.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so this is a pretty minor one, the one right down the bottom about furniture and fittings for the Thames halls.
Yes.
The second point there was about security cameras installed between the Civic Centre and the Winteak building. So people are probably aware that there's been some issues with our Thames vulnerable folk collecting around the toilet area of the Civic and also along closer to the main doors of the Civic. So yeah, 2 security cameras have gone in there, and yeah, it turns out people don't like being overly filmed, and so that problem has now left that area. Obviously, it's now gone somewhere else, but that has made people in that area considerably happier and safer, that there's not quite that degree of intimidation and not good behaviour going on there. So, but that was a pretty cheap little thing to do, and the custodian gets it on her phone, and yeah, that's been very well received in that area.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yeah, through the chair, Martin's correct. That was quite an issue, and the last thing we want is people feeling unsafe in areas, and so it has made a huge difference. So yes, that is really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of tourists in that area too, coming off the buses.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
Okay, any further?
Not really. I think we've got one other one I'd point out, through the chair straight, is just the workers 99.9% complete on the toilet area at the swimming pool. So that'll be fantastic once that's actually fully going. So we're right on the cusp of that. As that being sorted out, I think that'll be a real a boost for the pool. I think it'll be really exciting for the kids down there. It'd be really nice to see something new down there. So, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
And sorry, I said one other thing, with the airfield, so that remedial work that's happening there, is that more drainage, or is it more of a surface of the?
Yeah, there's a bit of drainage. There's
Yeah.
also the issue where let me try and make sure I recall this correctly, that how the runway's got like a very sharp crown on it.
Yeah.
And it's actually a bit too, Peter probably knows more about this than I do, but
Can you
too
keep the
crown.
water off it nicely, but
It
something
does,
like
but,
that.
if you get slightly off the centre, you're off and you're getting, where you don't want to hit the plane. So there's that, there's a bit more drainage work, there's a little more sealing work. So overall, I'm comfortable with things that we're doing on that space. Marissa's done a good job in driving this up forwards. Anything? Yeah, Peter?
No, that's all good. Good. The users are happy with that, just very happy with it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you, Bruce. Okay, that concludes the questions.
Oh, sorry, the last thing I just mentioned is from now on, I've got Andrew Bowden who's going to present this report rather than me, so I've had to prioritise my time and jump on to some other things. So for all the boards, he's going to present this report each meeting, and most of it is to do with the CapEx and his group anyway, his team anyway. So you won't see me quite as much. I'll still be around, but yeah. That's okay. Don't change yourself. Only across the car park.
That's the case. Wish you all the well with the resurrection, whatever it might be.
Yep.
And young commitments, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Having you on board.
Yep. We'll still see me, so yeah, please.
Awesome. Mover and seconder,
Yeah.
thanks. Second one. Those in favour?
Right.
Against?
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3.2, action schedule. Any major arising from this? I'll take it as routine read.
So I guess I have a question. How long once things are closed, do they stay on there before disappearing?
That's through the chair, after the next meeting, we will take them on. So anything that's said closed on here today, they'll come on to the
So is that, so when we say closed, if for instance it was something about putting a culvert under a road or something, are we closing it at the point that that work is done, or that work is in the books done, or at what point are we saying that that is closed? Sorry for the tricky question.
So that's a good question, and a couple of the other boards have raised a similar question on individual issues. It really depends on what the issue is. If we've got a high level of confidence that it's something that's going to stop the item being resolved, then often it will be closed. But if it's something that could drag on, or things aren't kind of we're not as confident, then they really should stay open until they've actually been achieved. And if we're going to close them before they're actually done, we need to make sure that the note in there is very clear for elected members that this has been closed because it's been programmed and it's going to be done by this date. So you guys know it's not done now as soon as it's closed, but it's going to be done by that date. So again, it's hard to give you a real hard and fast rule for that. But yeah, I guess from my side, I'll speak on behalf of the members, but from my side, I'm happy that we just manage it with the board, however you guys feel comfortable with each individual item.
Well, it's important that it's included in our action schedule as closed.
Yeah.
And the board members are informed.
Yes, and I think
It doesn't matter whether it's closed a month beforehand.
Yeah, as Jenna said, we like to do, we've closed it and you'll see it for one meeting that it's been closed, then it comes off the next meeting. So at least you've got a quarter in the agenda that it's been closed.
Is that all right, Martin?
Yeah, I guess sort of, I mean, while wanting to, not have a whole lot of stuff in there, it did sort of occur to me that, if we then wanted to check back on something that someone might have raised 6 months or a year or so ago, at the moment, your only way to really check with that is to, I guess, go and check each of the community board minutes to find the action schedule in there rather than a document that just stays as a, you know, a section at the bottom of it saying, you know, archived or closed or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to.
6 monthly, 6 monthly schedule, for example.
Yeah, I don't know if other people get asked the way that I do about items that, you know, that have been raised, particularly in public forum. And yeah, sometimes it can be a bit of a, yeah, having to sort of check back through the minutes. But I don't know if there's some other potential way, you know, of trying to.
Is there a spreadsheet that is generated for, you know, 1 year period or a 2 year period where, you know, these action points are, you know, like, do you put this all on a spreadsheet to be accessed?
Yeah, through the chair, we have a master sheet, so it's easy for us to be able to access and build where things are closed, archive, as you say. So if there is a request, then we do hold the master, so we will be able to find it out for you.
Right, and presumably it's not like 20 pages or anything, presumably it's relatively.
It can be quite big.
Oh, it can be quite big, okay.
We do get quite a few actions.
Yeah. Okay.
I can give you an example of a recent one. So it's on here, it's closed, but there's a whole lot of work going, like the action was to do an inspection.
Yeah.
So that's been done. But there's taking action now as a result of that inspection. Yeah, and the update will be on that spreadsheet.
Could I use that as a segue into, because I think we have an issue with the airfield. And the matter is closed in the sense that the staff have done what has been requested of the staff in terms. So I'm referring to the building of the hangar. And, you know, we all know that the history of that. And at the last meeting, we requested the staff make contact with the lessee. There was actions that took place at the council meeting, et cetera, et cetera. So those things have all been done. The bottom line is we don't have a hangar. We don't have a lease, somebody taking up a lease to build a hangar. And absolutely what we want is we want a hangar. So the actions are closed, but the issue around the hangar is still there. And it's where it sits at the moment is, well, if the potential lessee wants to build the hangar, then we're waiting until he comes back to us to build the hangar. We know that he has withdrawn his offer to lease for a variety of reasons. But it would just seem to me that in terms of what we're really wanting to see happen at the airfield, what we're really wanting to see in terms of development, and part of this is economic development, is to have a hangar built at the airfield. So whilst the actions that we talked about have been done, what's happening about engaging with somebody who looks like a hot prospect to do a development? And what needs to happen, what needs to change, and what do we need to do, or what do we need to change? And
So there's still ongoing issues.
what, you know, how can we get this man to build a hangar? Because that's ultimately what we want.
So everybody wants the lease thing. There's no doubt about that. The lease, everybody wants a hangar built there. However, the potential lessee needs to agree. And at the moment, he's not comfortable with what's been put in front of him. And so post the 22nd of March, post the March council meeting, staff did follow up with him to confirm that the council had approved the lease, and there was a discussion, and the company is not yet ready to proceed. So the ball is really in the court of the company. Now, what we can do is we could follow up on a regular basis to see whether or not that position has changed, whether that company is ready to take the next step. That's what we could do.
Right.
And in terms of-
So in my view, so we potentially have got a willing buyer and we know we're willing sellers, right? We want to get this thing going. And it seems to me that it's kind of like, it's almost like the council as a developer needs to get hold of this man and say, well, what do we have to do? How can we reach an agreement? How can we negotiate a point where you're happy enough and we're happy enough to go ahead and build this thing? It's kind of, it's a commercial negotiation that I think that my view is that we could be much more proactive in seeking to get this man over the line in terms of building a hangout down in the.
There's a comment up on the screen regarding this.
Kia ora, board, Dina on here through the chair. I think what you may be talking about is probably a separate action that can be added to the action table, but without getting into the detail, one way to make sure that this action table remains at a high level and is current for the public view, versus having a more detailed sort of action table in the background, is at your corridor catch-ups that you have with your area manager. Rose would be able to furnish the full list of actions that has been captured throughout the year, and you can put some comments beside those and some priorities beside those at those corridor instead, and that will sort of help keep the discussions alive in terms of what you're seeking to achieve.
I think the message is loud and clear from the community board that this is a priority. The community wants to see a lease in place. And staff, we've been doing our best to work with the potential leasing. However, there needs to be agreement between the parties. And I hear what you're saying, Peter, in regard to what else can we do. I think that we could, we couldn't have another chat about that. What else could we do? Ask that question and hopefully move forward, take the next step.
Yep, I would advise us not to just sit and wait for him to contact us. I think we want to see this happen and
be proactive. So
We should lose sight of the amount of resources and time that's gone into this over the last 2 years on both the side, the potential leases point of view and also council resources. There's a lot of resources that have gone into this.
Yep.
And
yes.
I think the staff are clear.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other matters arising from that? Mover and seconder? The action seconder?
Yep.
Thanks. Robin, second. Thanks, Peter. Members' reports? Peter, would you like to?
Sure. Okay, so I'll take it as read. There's just a few little updates on those. And thank you for that conversation about the EG audit. That's good. Just with regards to business network, many weeks have been running the business after fives. They're kicking off again, which I think is a really good thing. So having the business after fives, they'll be kicking off again next month around the business network. Shoreline management plan panel stuff. On Monday night at 7 o'clock, we had a consultation with the people interested in the monetary pathways, I guess. Yeah. And then last night it was with Te Puru. There were some very common themes coming out, one being when you have somebody being consulted who considers themselves to be an expert in the field, then lots of questions get asked of the panel of the project team, in detail about, well, those numbers you've got there don't match the numbers from 2009, and why is the difference between two? So it ends up being quite a lot of detail, which I think is a bit frustrating in terms of what the project team is trying to get out of it, in terms of it's not wanting to dive into detail, it's to get people's view on the kind of the pathways, and is this a good one? Do you want to have a wall or not have a wall, and so on. And it's all compressed into an hour and what have you. So they're happening, which is good, which is helping make people aware of the issues that there are at Mainatai, Te Puru and Tararoo. So that is good, but I think it's absolutely going to be essential that we have face-to-face consultation in all these places and have a good time and a good length so that people can actually get the opportunity to ask those deeper questions and what have you. Kapua Marine Precinct, which I was all excited about until we got the email this morning from Lorna. So there's obviously going to be challenges there around budget. Destination Playground, I just want to commend. So Derek Thompson is needs to be off work for a few weeks. That started sort of 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago. He's been absolutely critical. However, the first meeting we had without him was still a very productive meeting, and I do want to acknowledge Libby Gray and the way she has stepped up to undertake to find the information and do the things that we perhaps would be expecting Derek to do. And Bruce, thank you for your support to her and getting that happening. This destination playground is so exciting, and it's just what's being talked about, and the opportunity is fantastic. And there's the sense that we're really building some momentum. And so the fact that Libby Gray has stepped in, I do want to acknowledge that. Thank you. That's the end of the sermon.
Thanks, Peter. With the destination playground, at some point, the board going to be briefed, we'll update in relationship to, just progress, how we manage the funding of the design principles, all those sort of things, the aspects that are going around it. Is there a point where we
So there's a critical meeting at the end. So the next meeting is at the end of April of the sort of the work team and so on. After that, it would be most appropriate for the community board to be updated on in some detail, because the output of that should be high-level concept plans of what it could look like. We will have an understanding of exactly what area is going to be potentially encompassed by the playground. Perhaps give a more an idea of the scale of what we're talking about, and what have you. But we've got some stuff happening this week, and then another couple of weeks then we've got another meeting. So I think next community board meeting, which is whenever it is, it'd be appropriate to request an update from Derek.
Just trying to get a feel of how things are aligning and when it's best to actually present something to our community board. So.
Yep. There's a lot of goodwill flowing around. The Thames Business Association are doing a great job. Derek's doing a great job. The project people, who do the design and stuff up in Auckland, at the moment everything is looking good.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
You got a question?
sorry, can I just ask a question of in your report? So under business network and create the vibe, we've got TBA is working with consultants on the future of this. Is that separate from the council review? Or is that running alongside?
So sorry, say that again. Under the business network, what have we got?
Under create the vibe.
Yep.
So TBA is working with consultants on the future of this. Is that sort of in parallel with the council one or in conjunction with it or separate?
I don't know. All that I have been advised by is that they're talking to some consultants. I don't know who that is and whether it's the people that council have asked to talk to TBA.
Okay, so just if I can clarify, our commission on our website and all along has been that at the end of March, we would undertake an evaluation of Create the Vibe. So that's what happened. At the end of March, a consultant was engaged and has started the evaluation process.
So that's what.
So I assume that's what.
That will be what that is.
Okay.
They're not doing an independent. They're not doing an independent valuation.
No, okay.
Like that.
I just saw that and
Yeah.
my antenna pricked up.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
So when will we be informed of that
We're
evaluation?
coming to the community board meeting on the 18th of May
Right,
for
cool.
consideration.
Bill, anything to report?
No, things have been very quiet, lots of reading. I don't know quite why it's sort of ranked up, but yeah, lots and lots of reading. And thank you for the organisational chart. That was really good. So those always help. Mm.
Good changes?
Right. Yeah, so the main thing that people have been talking to me about recently is around the solid waste, particularly the organic/food waste collection and the operation of the refuse transfer stations. There's been a considerable amount of Create the Vibe stuff going on, which we're trying to absorb and looking forward to that review. Goldfields Information Centre, I think that was raised by Greg. And yeah, I guess there's a feeling in town that, well, I've been getting a little bit in the neck was, okay, so Goldfields are getting, this is other people's words, Goldfields are getting all this money, and at the moment you walk in the door there's a desk with a couple of pamphlets on it and that's it. And I understand there's, COVID and supply chain issues and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's difficult to be able to say that at the moment that the community board is, or that, yeah, that the community board is getting any sort of value for money or any sort of service out of that situation at the moment. And I'm also frustrated with the airfield lease. Yeah, it just sort of seems that that we're not being proactive enough and that we're kind of springing surprises on potential lessees, which doesn't tend to work that well for people who want some certainty. Had discussions with some people around the Thames market. I was at a Thames Heritage Network meeting last night, and they are looking to have the Gold Mine Experience opening up there, having a steam, I think they call it a steam up, in a couple of weekends' time. That'll be for Saturday and Sunday, where they fire their boiler up and get the stamper battery working, which if you have not been to see it, you definitely should. It's quite an experience. And yeah, so I'm very encouraged to see this on the front page about all the potential bus links that we could potentially have. I just wondered whether the community board was going to be planning on submitting to that Waikato Regional Council public transport. This is the idea where the regional council will take control and ownership of public transport within the whole region and be able to rate for that to be able to create some public transport. It looks like it's dependent on what Kotahi coming up with some money. But yeah, I did wonder if the community board was going to submit on that. And yeah, the last thing is just around the SMPs. It really feels to me that we're at the pointy end of this process, and going out to the community and starting to talk about things like insurance retreat and possible mitigations and all those walls and structures and inundations and all that kind of thing. I just really feel that it's absolutely key that our consultation with the communities works really well. I did have a comment made to me yesterday that there were some people that got the letters, some people in Wānatauri who got the letters about the online session the other night. They got them the following morning. So I realise that council just delivers those letters to the postal people. So potentially it's a postal people issue, but we really need to make sure that those letters are going out well in advance. And I actually got to see a copy of the letter, and yeah, it was basically just like a whole lot of stuff like this. And I think things like that really need to have a couple of key boxes in there saying, Tuesday the 4th of March or 4th of April, there's an online session, blah, 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 because they were talking in the meeting about possibly having another session because there were people that didn't know about it. So I just think it's really important that, that our communication, particularly with communities like that, is really, really clear, and we go over the top as far as talking and not just think, oh, we've done the bare minimum. We need to really engage well.
I'll just query that. So would that letter have gone through comms?
I can talk to that. I can talk to that board if, yes, those letters were sent through to Datacom probably a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and the post for Thames only comes twice a week, so they did arrive yesterday. We are going to be hosting another online meeting for Moana Tairi because of that fact, and also we will be doing in-person meetings as well. So these first online meetings, while they're a good initial communications tool, we will be doing a lot more around that as well. So if people are requiring another online meeting, we'll be able to do that, and we will be doing in-person meetings, and we are also posting up over the following days all of those recorded meetings through all our channels so people can actually watch them as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Lorna.
That's it from me.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, it's been a bit quiet around the Sinclair household. Our school has been particularly affected by Omicron, so I've been parenting at home, which has been a lot of fun. And there are lots of crickets in my garden. We're doing a mark recapture experiment, which has been quite fun. That's not really useful to you guys, though. Though I know a lot more about crickets than I ever thought I could possibly know. I've also been attending some meetings online and catching up with some professional development opportunities. LGNZ has had a couple of free webinars that I've been able to watch, and a few things that have cropped up in other places for my life, including something by Belinda Story from the Insurance Council. Sorry, about insurance. She's not from the Insurance Council, she's from the Deep South Project. I wanted to commend Amon for his great work the last 2 nights in our shoreline management plan meetings. I think he's handled them very well and presented the information presented the information well, and really acknowledged that the things that we're talking about at this pointy end are quite confrontational, and they are giving people a pause to think. It struck me last night that I'm particularly happy that we're consulting on a few other things at the moment. I'm particularly happy that we're trying to get some budget to do some meaningful climate action within council for our annual plan process, because that made me feel better about the whole process entirely, because of course what we're talking about is adaptation, but we also need to be mitigating at this point as well. Not much else going on, so I think that's it for me.
Well, just briefly, a wonderful outcome related to the Koku Marine precinct. We all agree with that, and As a community board, we lobby hard in relationship to scenario 2, realising the long-term benefits of that if we could manage it. To Laura and the team, I know with some of the submissions that finally went in relationship to, the environmental issues and those types of things to support scenario 2 was excellent. I read some of those, and so it is really a great outcome for us, and certainly I lobbied hard in relationship to that as chair of the Thames Community Board. The waste management contract that's going to be let again. I feel there's quite a few comments in the community regarding our program of works leading into the contract to be signed, and in particular those things that build awareness and education relating to minimisation of waste, as well as the possibility of the introduction of the food bin and minimise waste, those sort of things. So I've really questions relating to the timing of those sort of issues in relationship to the contract being let and any review that council is doing in relationship to those things, and whether it leaves us in a position of vulnerability in terms of the contract that we might sign up in June or whatever it is in July, relationship to the things we need to do. So anyway, that's one subject. But I haven't really got a lot more to report. Hope it's kept us a bit better. Yep.
Can I just pick up on something Martin was saying about, you asked it, I think, as a rhetorical question. Are we going to do a submission to WRC around public transport? Are we? Because it would seem. What's that?
We haven't discussed it as a group.
Right.
We'll do that.
Is that going to be later?
We will discuss whether or not it's something that we'd like to do.
Yeah.
And you will have received an email this afternoon with a lot of background information on it from Dean Allen. So yes, just take that up together.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add one thing to my members' report?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I submitted my signature electronically, and that has now been added to the climate change declaration. So TCDC is now signed up to the climate change declaration.
Yeah, well done.
Well done.
Now I can retire.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question for those that have attended the going on? Is Waikato Regional Council having a strong engagement related to the project?
Yes.
Yes.
They're on the project team, they're active on the project team, and they're contributing to the consultation, etc., etc.
Right.
In a positive way.
One of the concerns that I've had. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just wondered with Martin's report about people and the concern around Goldfields and the information centre, is it possible to invite Goldfields to come and talk to us about what their plans are?
Yep. Yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
I think it would be good for us all to know.
Appropriate for Lorna just to provide an update on how the implementation is progressing. And I know that she's been, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I can make some comment on that. Excuse me. Yes, they have just been waiting for the kiosks to arrive, and as we've signposted, they are coming from China, and they have been waiting in containers for some time. We've been in contact with Goldfields on a weekly basis just to see how things are progressing, and we understand that they should be here in the next couple of weeks. And in terms of, so we will be able to do a bit more promotion around that once they arrive. Take on board the feedback, Martin, about, temporarily they've had to have that signage and that static stand at the entrance. It's just been unfortunate that's just, something that we've had to deal with as we wait for the kiosks to arrive.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah. All right.
That's it.
That concludes members' report.
Happy to move those.
Second.
Thanks, Cheryl. And that's the close of the meeting.
Very good.
All done.
Shortest meeting.